All right. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. Yeah.
Awesome. How was the practice?
Really good, but also very confronting with all the body parts that I don't like and other stuff like that. But
Hmm.
I also feel like because it was way worse a few months ago, and yeah, I feel like I just need to do it again and again and again and again, like really feel through it to,
Yeah.
yeah, to
Yeah, I
trust.
feel like that one's going to be a really powerful one for you to
Yeah.
really create a different connection with your body and your sexuality. So I'm really excited to see how that unfolds for you. So welcome to module, what number is this now? Five. Module five, and we're going to go into the oracle, which I also like to look at it as the priestess archetype within us. You know, the one that is really deeply connected with our intuition and with our connection to source, and the one that is the leading force for us that we should always come back and reconnect to. We will always find the answers for ourselves and in our relationships and what's the next step forward to take through this archetype. So before we continue with that, I just want to backtrack a little bit with the enchantress because I never really claimed or gave the embodiment of what the enchantress is. I kind of did, but it was just through the conversation. So I just want to make them very concrete. So the enchantress is the embodiment of confidence in her body and sexuality. She embodies, she sees her body as sacred. She's the embodiment of her body and sexuality as a connection, a direct connection to source and to creation. And she's also very protective of who she allows into this area, into her temple. So she's very discerning, like she knows it's a sacred. So she is going to use all of her intuition, all of her senses to know when it's right and who she allows in. Um, she's also the seductress, and how she adorns her body and how she chooses to dress herself in the certain situations, like with her man, out in public, um, or other ways that she's going to be shown in this sexual seductress energy. She's also is the magnetic force. This is the magnetism that every woman has, that she really owns it unapologetically. Um, and she embodies the confidence within her body and how she presents herself. She is like the sex priestess, and she also seduces her desires. So that is what the embodiment of the enchantress is. So as we move on to the oracle, there's something that I also want to make sure that we tap on, which is directly connected with the oracle, which is something that we talked about a little bit on the previous module, which was the um, information that we receive from like other people, right? Like, for example, when um, you said that someone mentioned about that men receive love through sex or something like that, right? So when it comes to all of this, this is where the oracle really steps in and really decides, like, this is what I believe and I resonate with what this woman is saying to me, or no, this is not what I believe. So if I were to say that out loud, or somebody were to tell me like men receive love through sex, immediately my whole body's like, no, like that doesn't feel right to me. Because for me, it means that men receive love through sex, so therefore I have to give him sex for him to feel loved, and almost goes in hand for me, the way I see it, as like, then we're again their sex toy. So that for me doesn't resonate. Men have been conditioned to only receive the feminine through sex. Men have, and it's very obvious, right, with things that we mentioned previously, which is like through porn, through men have been conditioned that, that they're just these horny bastards and they need to let this energy out. And then women is one of those ways. So sex to me is a giving and receiving of both man and woman. And it's not a only way to give or to receive love. It's just one modality that couples do in their sacred union, right? And in the co-creation process of creating a new life, because that was how back in the ancient ways that sex wasn't something that people just did all the time and just fuck like bunnies and just give birth. It was a very conscious thing that they did. And it was a very sacred and like not godlike, but like very a co-creation with source, even if it was just for like making love. So that's my personal opinion. So with this module, this is where you really get to own what you believe and what you feel is true, because it's your truth, and what my truth isn't always going to be your truth, or what somebody else's truth isn't always going to be yours or mine. So this is where we really get to own what we choose and what we decide for our lives and our relationship, our spiritual practice, all of that, like, and what we get to like deny or just like, you know what, I understand, but you do you, I do me type of thing. All right, so let's get into what the oracle embodies. So the oracle embodies the radical truth and honesty, which isn't always pretty. Sometimes it is very honest, sometimes it is very nurturing, sometimes it is maybe very neutral, sometimes it is very like more positive, more like, ah, that feels just so good to my soul. And sometimes radical truth and radical honesty can come out more as bitchy or like just brutally honest, where it just like cuts like a sword right through the bullshit. This is where I feel that men can, well, depending on how we present this, is always, context is always everything. But it is important to not deny this part of us, because we don't want to come out looking bitchy, or we don't want to come out looking too straight up and too firm, and therefore either threaten the man or scared to rock the boat. So we do embody, this is a part where we embody our radical truth and honesty and discern how we are going to present the truth. My favorite example of radical honesty, there was a movie when I was creating this program, there was this movie that I was like, oh my God, this is exactly what it is. Because I sometimes like to call it the feminine wrath as well. Have you seen the movie Noah? Or it was like way long ago, it was like in 2013, where they made it off the Bible, where he's creating the ark and then whatever. So there is a scene in there where one of the girls is pregnant, and then because God told him it's only supposed to be them, he was going to kill the babies, right? And the wife, she came out with the rawest radical truth, honesty to him, where it just pierced through his shit, where he really had to think about his decision, right? Because it was, but God told me this and all of that. So he was confronted with morals and ethics, which is what the feminine carries based on his mission of what God directed him to do. And when she came out with that, like, she completely embodied that whole, like, her oracle, her radical truth. She had like snot hanging out of her nose and everything. Like, she did really good on that part. But that is like the best expression of that, like, no, like, this is what you're doing is wrong. This is the truth. So I want to watch that movie again. But if we ever need a little reminder, go back to that scene, and that can really show like when it is that unapologetic, I'm telling you how it is, and in a way that it's blunt, but penetrates, and it's not nasty. It wasn't a trauma projecting, is what I'm trying to get to. So the oracle also embodies our intuition and our self-trust. So this is the ever-knowing presence within us when we don't know what the answers is, that we stop and we slow down, because our oracle will always tell us when to slow down. You know, our priestess in us will always tell us when to slow down and when to tune in, so that we can cut out the noise and really listen to what is the answer for us, no matter how confronting that answer can be. So this is what she embodies. She's also the void in between. The void, the space, the where is my manifestation coming? And she always asks us to like, just, can you hold it? Can you hold the uncomfortableness? So she's also, in terms of weather, right? Because the seasons kind of go with these. Enchantress was fall, Oracle is the winter, right? So the winter is really that super uncomfortable time where it's like, if you're going to go outside, you really have to like bundle up, because if you just stand in the raw truth of it, it can be like really uncomfortable, right? So the Oracle asks us, can we hold that void and that uncomfortableness of the in-between and be present with ourselves? In usually the shadows is also what comes up during this time. So she really does help process with this as well. She embodies our connection to our highest self and spirit, God. She is the one that's in deep communion with that creation force, with whatever our higher power beliefs are. She is the one that's always in that deep communion and listening to the guidance that comes within. And she is the one that is embodied in her body signals. Like, she really listens to what the body is telling, right? Through that sacred no's and those sacred yeses. And she is the one that also embodies the intuitive gifts, our clairsentience, our clairvoyance, the claircognizant, and the clairaudient, which we all have certain ones that are more powerful, but she can also, of course, awaken all of them and have them all super in tune with ourselves, so that we are very much aware of when the guidance is coming in. So just as a recap, clairsentient is the sensations that we feel in our body, like, oh, I feel like that doesn't feel right, things like that. Clairvoyance is our inner vision, when we see it within our third eye or also within our dreams. Claircognizant is just that direct, boom, inner knowing, like it's just quick and immediate, and you just feel that immediate yes. And then the clairaudient is where you really receive the messages from spirit, where sometimes it can sound like your own voice, or it can actually sound like an external voice. But also clairaudience also receives messages a lot through books, through through different words of people, where it just lands like, oh, that was for me. And our oracle is always in deep connection and communion with our womb and with our bleed, which is another part that we have alongside with the enchantress. Both of these archetypes have been this part with the connection with our womb, with our bleed, and with our physical body, and our sexual or sacred sexual anatomy has been really cut off. So our oracle is really in the wisdom of our womb and the bleed, and doesn't see it as a nuisance or as, you know, a bothersome. She really connects with it, and she knows that there's wisdom that our bleed is telling us and that our womb is communicating with us. So she honors this time, which is the slowing down time. Okay, so those are what all of the things that she embodies. So the part that I really, really want to make sure that we cover in this module is really that part of where we are not abandoning ourselves, because this is the oracle that, or this is the archetype that we can definitely tend to abandon ourselves in relationship and not listen to our intuition, not listen to the signals that God is telling us, that spirit is communicating with us, the signs that are right in front of us. We will abandon ourselves because of these wounds that we have, that we are unconsciously co-creating in life, right? So we neglect our intuition because that shadow is the one that's running the story, and we've been raised to let the shadow run versus raised to let our intuition guide us and at the same time process these shadows, right? So this is where we can really abandon ourselves. But this can also be confusing as well, because when we do ask for guidance, as we know, if you've been practicing receiving guidance from spirit, sometimes the guidance can be very confusing because they don't give you like a straight up answer. The answers never always come just like straight up. Sometimes they can, but sometimes they're not. So it can be a little confusing. So it's our process to use, I don't know what the right word would be, but to not sometimes we got to give it time. And let me explain. So the first time that I received, so I'm more clairaudient. So I'm clairsentient and clairaudient. So I definitely receive a lot of messages. So the first time that I ever received a straight up answer from spirit was when I was with one of my boyfriends, and in the middle of the night, like I was just sleeping, and then I hear like a strong authoritative voice saying like, you're rushing the relationship. It woke me up out of my sleep that I just sat straight up, like in the movies, like when they're like surprised. And I was like, what the fuck was that? Because this was in the first that bracket of time with my awakening, my first awakening. So I really didn't know what was happening. And I was like, that was freaky. Okay, whatever. I don't know what that was. I'm not listening. Boom, boom, boom. That relationship breaks up in a very crazy way. Okay, moving forward, I meet my ex-fiance. So we meet, and then we're together for 2 years. Very crazy, wild first 2 years. So much drama, so much craziness. We break up. This is the first breakup because we broke up 3 times. The first breakup, it was probably the darkest time in my life. Like I felt betrayal from almost everyone that I thought had my back. I felt everyone chose his side. He also made me get against didn't make me, but really manipulated me to see my mom as like a bad person. I also through this time had an abortion. So I had a lot of horrible feelings about myself. And then he didn't take any responsibility because he was also threatening me to take me back to my country because he thought that I was going to sue him. Okay. Crazy madness. Okay. And he took no credit, no responsibility for my decision because he was threatening me this whole time. I was scared for my life. So he took no responsibility. Instead, he just flipped it on me, flipped it on my family. It was just a mess. But he did the whole knight in shining armor thing. I took him back. Didn't take long before the high wore off and then all the bullshit was still there. So during this time, like I am really confused. Like I'm so confused. Like I don't know what to do. So every night for about a week, I slept, or before I went to sleep, I prayed. I was like, and cried my eyes out. My God, please tell me what to do. Like, I'm not going to do anything until you tell me what to do. And I was just every single night, like before I went to bed, crying myself to sleep, praying this prayer, because I was just like, I don't want to make the same mistake that I did before, because the relationship was madness and just some of the things that I'm telling you here. But I really cared for him, right? So I'm in this confusing state. So on my way to his house, I'm leaving work. And then I hear, don't give up, try again. And it kind of came in through like this. And it was like a split of a second. It reminded me of how I used to be in sports, where when things got tough, I would just give up and then just go do something different. And it was kind of like, to what it felt like intuitively, like, okay, don't give up. Like you got to keep trying at this. And when I said, in this moment, I said, I'm not going to ignore this voice, because the last time I ignored it and something bad really happened. I'm going to listen. So I said like, okay. And in that moment, it was just like a miracle happened, where all the grievances that I had, every ounce of hate that I felt towards the people that I felt betrayed me got lifted. It was really like just a complete 180 view, like from betrayal and I hate everyone, I'm so angry, I feel so hurt and abandoned, to it's okay. Like we all made mistakes, it was a crazy mess and I'm good. Like it was like this complete peace that I've never felt. But that didn't last very long. It lasted like 4 days. But I would think that, okay, I'd listened to this voice, that the relationship would be more smooth sailing. And no, it was not like that at all. Like for the 4 years, it was still crazy madness. So I would often get really confused. I'm like, why would this voice tell me? Like, I knew it wasn't mine. Like it felt, it was an outside thought. It's like, why would God, why would spirit tell me to not give up, try again? So I would always go back to that whenever I was confused. But it wasn't until like year two or the last 2 years. So after the second breakup, we got back together. This is when I really was stepping into that queen energy to really embodying my oracle and my truth. And where I really started to ask questions and get more connected with myself, with my higher self. Like, is this what I really want? Am I going to agree with what he's telling me? It was like a whole deconditioning process because I wasn't trained to do that ever until that point. Even though I had done a lot of work on myself, there was never that like, what do you stand for in a relationship? So I had to walk through myself, through a void, through a whole void, probably for 4 years of what do I stand for? What do I stand for in a relationship? Who am I? So it was a lot of being very courageous, a lot of firm boundaries, a lot of I'm no longer available for this type of treatment. Like my oracle was just coming out with straight up like this is not what I'm okay with. And every single argument, it was a questioning of, okay, what do I believe in this? Because I was brainwashed for a lot of time and manipulated to really believe him. Because I didn't have nothing to get centered in. I didn't have this. And our oracle really is our center. So throughout that time, it wasn't until, so we broke up with this, my claircognizant was like, this is it. We are done. Like, I just know this from the bottom, from the depths of my soul and from every inch in my body is like, you're done. And it wasn't until, gosh, like earlier this year, I probably would say September, sometime this year, maybe even earlier, where what that message from spirit finally like it was completely integrated. And what it was is it was never about not giving up on the relationship. It was about never giving up on me. It was about never giving up on what I truly desired in a relationship and how I really wanted to be as a woman. Because I was always met with conflict with him. Like every time my intuition was like, I want to do this, no, like no. So there was this huge conditioning from my partner to not listen, to listen to him because I abandoned myself for the love. I abandoned myself because I really wanted this relationship, right? So that was what the message was. It was never about him, although he was my gateway to that. He was my initiation to all of these archetypes that we're talking about, right? But the main one that is like the one that stems into every single one is the oracle, because every single one of these archetypes and any archetype that I believe that we will ever encounter has that connection to source. It's always like the backbone, you know? So that was what that lesson was. So that's why this can be sometimes confusing. But if we stay true to ourselves this entire time, those answers will come to us. So the biggest lesson for me and the biggest lesson that I want to make sure that I come through with this archetype is really not abandoning ourselves and staying true to ourselves. And sometimes it's going to require us to just question a lot and be more discerning and to really step into our hearts versus just sometimes maybe going with the flow or what we may think is intuition, but really not, because we have been conditioned through to be a certain way, if that makes sense. Let me take some water. My mouth is getting dry. So yeah, once I really started to embody, I really started to step into my truth is when the shifts really started to happen with myself. When I really started to feel more alive, when I really started to like, oh, this is who I am. This is who I am. And he also had to make those shifts too, which is also what made the relationship confusing, because throughout the whole relationship, he was also growing, but it was because I was growing. So eventually he would kind of grow too, but I ended up outgrowing him because he was just too stuck in his shadow. He was just way too stuck. And in the end, me and him were never meant to be. I really believe that we planned this, you know, before we came onto earth. We believe in reincarnation for both of us to, at least for me, to really have this experience because, yeah, he was my initiation to my truth and really my initiation into self-leadership. And this is what our oracle has within us, the ability to take self-leadership within us. Now, I know self-leadership is more of a masculine role, but with women, our intuition is the one that takes the driver's seat. And then the action step is where more like that masculine is like, okay, I see the vision. Now, how are we going to take these things and put them into place? Okay. So let's talk about the void and like that in between. So kind of like what I mentioned, like winter is the void. Winter is the in between from fall, a really beautiful time, and then going into the next beautiful time, spring. So this is the in-between space where we are constantly in a place of recalibration, is how I like to see it. This is when we are recalibrating, rewiring our neural pathways to stay on our path so that we can get to the spring, right? So this is when we are really given those opportunities of how to, number one, either integrate something or how to hold what we desire until it actually comes into being. And the void is also the place where creations are birthed, right? Creations, if we think about the womb where the baby comes from, it's created in the space of no thing. So this is also what that is. So there's like different aspects to our void where it is where we can consciously go there and be in the stillness of our minds, be in the stillness of our bodies and create something, but it's also that recalibration, but our recalibration is also a creation of something that we want, of a higher vibration, or when that manifestation finally comes in that we desire. So the oracle, the priestess really asks us, like, can we stay in the uncomfortableness sometimes of what we want when we don't see it? And this is where this is the slowing down and the coming in within ourselves and being patient and trusting that source will deliver, that life will deliver, that we have like that unwavering faith that everything can be okay. So the part that I want to talk about with the void in the terms of calling in our king is really being able to have that trust within us that we are in the place, that we are continually embodying every single part of our queen energy, our divine feminine essence, and trusting on that timing that he will come. And if there are men in between, those are the times where we're just being tested. We're given those opportunities to, number one, either experience something that we've never experienced before. They're like, wow, this is what's available to me. But then if he's not the one, then there's something in that's also a lesson for us. And to trust in that process is really what this void is asking us to be. And if we can handle this void, not only as we're waiting, but when we're in a relationship, when we're trusting and we have that unwavering faith, for example, when we're getting into an argument with our partner, but still staying true to ourselves so that we're not abandoning ourselves, or while we're dating and listening to what is coming through and not abandoning ourselves. This is what she's really asking from us during this time. Because this void's going to be there the whole time. No matter what you're doing, you're always going to find yourself in that, what do I stand for? What am I putting my faith, my unwavering faith and trust into? Is it going to be in something that really isn't going to give me love and satisfaction, I'm just going to cave into that because I don't want to lose this person. I don't want to rock the boat. So we're putting our faith in that fear, or we're going to put our faith in love and trust and patience of like one loving step at a time. One, let me sit with this and see what comes through, and just be okay if there is conflict in the relationship, or if you're in that space of like, okay, where is my man? Where is he coming through? I'm doing all this work, right? And just really stepping within and creating that, continuing to create that communion within yourself, because that's where we find our safety. Like for me, with the Oracle, like I feel her like down in my womb, but also because the womb is like right in between like the root chakra and our solar plexus. So to me, it's almost like she definitely is like that power center and that safety from the root chakra. Even though I know it's the sacral chakra is creativity and all that, but there's something to me that feels like, like she just holds those codes, or she's calling onto those other chakras to be and work with her, if that makes sense. So the void is also about walking with duality. So walking with the duality of I'm in this void, but I can still move forward with my life. So I am calling on in my king. I'm waiting for this divine masculine man to like sweep me off my feet, but there's no waiting, or there's no caving into this is not here yet, or going into some kind of, you know, there's never going to come, this is not working, I'm not meant for love, or blah, 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 or the next man that comes attaching to that idea that this is the one because there's been such a long gap, or there's a desperateness to have and to call that man in. So this is where we're walking with that duality and trusting like, okay, I'm going to hold this uncomfortable feeling of he's not here yet, or a feeling of like, let's say you're fighting in your relationship, but you're still walking with your truth and moving forward with your life. This is the duality. Or walking with all of your shadows and your demons and the things that you're processing, but also holding that same light and love and calling in with what you desire. That is the walk with duality. And I say that because for me, I was somebody who definitely would be on the either side of the extreme, right? And because I couldn't walk with the duality is when I would cave and go, for my attachment style was the anxious attachment, where I would just like, no, okay, whatever, I'm going to listen. So I'm going to abandon myself. I'm not going to listen to my intuition because I couldn't hold the void. I couldn't hold that uncomfortableness. And like, no, what do you want me to do? You know, what do you want me to do? Like, I want to save this relationship. I want to make the relationship work. So I'm going to go into these, I'm just going to attach. I'm going to anxiously attach to you and do whatever you want, right? And then there comes in the sex, there comes in whatever, fill in the gap because I can't hold the void. So that is what this one is this part that I really want to come through with this lesson is, as you're waiting, it's okay, you're going to feel all these comfortable feelings, but staying here so we don't abandon ourselves. Same thing when you're dating, we're not attaching to a certain idea, we're not attaching to a certain whatever. We're going to allow him to show up with his actions, not just with his words, with his actions, showing us he's that divine king that we've been calling upon and that we're calling into our space, and listening to what she says, listening to what our oracle says about him, and not abandoning ourselves, right? And then when we get into the relationship, we're still holding on to this energy. And when the first fight comes, or where there's a time where it's just like, okay, things are kind of wobbly, but can you still hold yourself during that time? Can you still stay connected with your oracle? Can you still stay connected in you and not go into our anxious attachment, anxious avoidant attachment, or whatever the hell it is that we do when we feel uncomfortable? Because with holding that uncomfortableness, not only does it allow you to really find the true answers and to recalibrate whatever it is to alchemize a shadow, but it's also giving that person the time that they need to do the same thing. If we can't hold the void and we're just pushing things on top, then it's either a fixing, it's not really a evolving and a resolving, right? Or a healing. It's a fixing and just make the relationship work. And that is, there's not a strong foundation to build a relationship like that, or to continuing the building of the house as you're moving along in the relationship. New neural pathways. Okay, what do you think about all of that? Any questions or comments?
Very, very clear. So what do you do when your oracle is 180 degrees different from the king's sovereign expression? Like if you are already in a relationship and there's conflict, and your oracle says something that is just 180 degrees different from his sovereign expression, like how, what, like who wins, or like how can that get to a resolution?
Yeah. So with that, sometimes it's just having several conversations, right? Several conversations of this is how I feel, this is my truth, this is what I want to do, this is why I don't want to do that. And having those, like I said, probably multiple conversations where you both can really express. Now, either one of a few things can happen. Either he sees your truth and he's like, you know what, I think we do that, or you see his truth, or it's like agree to disagree. And that agree to disagree is either going to be this, we're starting to feel the dissonance of the relationship and the relationship is going apart, or that agree to disagree is just like, okay, we see different points of views, but you somehow work it out and continue with the relationship. So that's a great question, because that was a lot of what I had a question with my previous relationship. Is it an agree to disagree, or is he right and I'm wrong, or am I right and he's wrong, right? So I had to really ask myself these hard questions and really be confronted with the truth of what I felt and follow through on that. And it took time, like lots of time and lots of the different examples of, I feel like this is right for me. This is my truth. I know he doesn't see it that way, but this is what feels right for me. But I would still make a decision that was based on me. For example, I would make a decision based on me, and then I would observe what he did. And then I would ask myself, is this appropriate response? Is this being true to me, or is he just being an asshole? And most of the times it's just being an asshole. I had the Mirena, you know, the IUD, like the Mirena. Do you know what an IUD is?
No,
So an IUD, it's where they put this, it looks like a T that you put inside your uterus to prevent pregnancy. So it's like a form of.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Okay. So this was my second time having this in, and I've tried like multiple. So because I had the abortion, because we had an oopsies, we were trying to find different ways. So I've never been on birth control. So I tried 3 different pills, all of them horrible reaction. Then I tried the copper, and the copper gave me really bad pain after 6 months, and my period was just like a mess. Then the last thing that I tried was the Mirena that had a little bit of progesterone, but it was starting to give me insomnia when I was supposed to have my period. So when I made the connection, my body was like, I'm taking this shit out of me right now. I was like, I'm not going to wait another day. And it felt right for me to not have a conversation with him, because it's my body And like this thing is giving me insomnia. And the last thing that I would see back then, there was a lot of blogs. There wasn't like Facebook groups. So when I would Google it, you would see a lot of blogs that they would get insomnia and then they would have panic attacks. I was like, fuck that shit. I've never had a panic attack in my life. I am not going to get one. So I called, I made an appointment, and I even told them I was going to do it. It's not like I said surprise, but he was mad at me because I didn't talk to him first. And I didn't feel I needed to talk to him first. I didn't want to wait one more day. That was what felt very sovereign to me. So I did it. And then he got mad, and out of spite, this is something I had to observe, he went and got a vasectomy. So that was really hurtful to me because that's like something that you can't like, it's hard. Like you have to plan, like I would have to probably do like IVF or something like that if we ever wanted to have babies. Now at the time I was thinking we're going to be having babies, and I think we were engaged at that time too, if I remember correctly. I can't quite remember, but that was something that I had to observe. It's like, is this okay with me? Like, is this okay that he did this to me? And I remember my dad even said, he's like, I swear you were going to leave him at that point. Like he did that. Like, I swear you'd be like, fuck you, I'm out. But it took me so long for me to really connect with this part of me. And it really allowed me to stay in that void of, okay, I'm doing this, he's doing that. How am I feeling about this whole situation? So it really taught me that patience, and I don't have to make a decision right now if I'm not ready to make a decision, like to break up with him or not. And it took me until another situation, like he had 3 kids and he didn't like me on Facebook. He hated it. Like he was just fucking crazy. So I remember I took a video of his son, which was going to be my stepson, doing gymnastics, and I posted it on Facebook. He didn't like that. He said, take it off. I was like, well, this is his son. I will honor that. But then somebody else in his bloodline did it. And I said, well, why is it okay for them to do it, but not me? And I wanted to see what he would say. And his answer was, well, that's blood. And then he started giving me this whole explanation. And I was just like thinking in my mind, I'm like, I'm going to be your wife one day. I was like, when is it going to be enough for me to share my stepchildren? Like he's doing gymnastics. Like it's not like, I was proud of him because I was a gymnast, right? So for me, I'm like, oh my God, gymnastics. So even then I didn't break up with him. Even then I was still in that questioning and still really connecting in communion with me, with my highest self, and really observing everything in that void. And it wasn't until the situation happened with his kids where I just felt like, I'm done. I was like, I can't do this anymore. I was like, I'm not doing any more therapy. I'm not going to go to family therapy. I was like, because that would be the next step. I was like, I'm done with the struggle. And I had made that decision before too, like within those 2 years that I was done struggling. But he saw it differently. He was like, well, if the harder the struggle, the better the reward. So he was like almost like in this addictive loop with struggle, with, that warrior, that hero mentality complex, the hero complex, the savior complex. I think was part of his shadows that he couldn't really overpass. So it just little by little was showing me, but all that time, I really strengthened that oracle within me so that when new men were presented to me, I really knew how to listen to her because I really connected with her. And I was in that void with her for such a long time, and I knew, like, even in that void, I was like, that's so fucked up that he did this, that he did that, that he did that. That's why when you're in a relationship, it's okay to wait. And unless you're in a physically abusive, then that's different, right? That's a whole different, because your life is literally on the line. But if your life is not on the line, then it's just uncomfortable. And it's better to wait until and you really, in my opinion, that you really made that decision within yourself, like, okay, I'm done, and you're whole in it, and move on. unless you know you can handle the void of the breakup too, which is another situation. So when
Yeah.
Ron and I have like the moving to Florida, which I'll be moving in 2 weeks now, that was a conversation that we started to have in like 2021. So that's been a long time of like, and I was a little concerned. I was like, is he going to go with me? Because he is a person that likes safety, likes comfortableness. He likes certainty, you know? And for him, staying with the same company for 10 more years, even though he's not happy in Jersey and with the weather, he would do that. You get what I'm saying? But for me, I'm not like that. I'm like, let's get the fuck out of here. Like, I want to be in warm weather. I want to be around my family and friends again. Like, I knew, but we had the conversation and I didn't make the move or that decision of like, I'm ready to go this year at this month until like I felt completely ready. And also the relationship made that shift where we both were making a really sovereign choice and not I'm not happy and like explosive, like it's just a trauma decision. Does that make sense?
Yeah. One more question. We are mirrors of each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if we have our partner actually being a part of ourselves, we're being mirrored into, is it like, when do you decide that it's something being mirrored back to you, that's something internal that you can shift so that the other person shifts automatically with you because it's the internal external reflection, versus saying fuck this shit, I'm out. And and because I sometimes find it so hard to grasp, because I've been struggling a lot with the scapegoat archetype as well, that I like, as a survival mechanism, I like carry other people's shadow and shit as a protection mechanism, because then I won't be abandoned. And then I'm carrying all this shame and guilt. Which is, I mean, most people who have been sexually abused at a young age do that, because we carry like the guilt and the shame of the abuser, right? As a survival mechanism. So I really had to go through that and see clearly, like, holy fuck, I'm like, that's not even my shit, it's yours. and then giving that back, and then becoming like, from there, like getting more clarity, and also seeing like, wow, you even though I've got the scapegoat archetype, and seeing that through that, I also start to see how the people around me mirroring me, and especially like a partner. And so, because my ex-partner was that was also a hot mess, and I've been believing for a very long time, and actually still believe it if I really look at my subconscious and the patterns that I'm still doing, that come from these same beliefs of that I'm just as bad and wrong as he was, because he was mirroring me. And then I'm like, getting into all the shame and guilt again. And it's like, when do you decide, like, he's just fucked up and I'm out of here, and not carrying his shit, and that's his shit, and bye.
Yeah.
And when is it like, well, actually there was a part of me and I've got some work to do here myself? Yeah. Is the question clear?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So first, definitely owning what was yours and what is theirs, like what you mentioned in the beginning, like separating, because my ex also was a mirror of me. He was controlling and I was controlling in different ways. So I was controlling with my clients. I was a personal trainer at the time. So I would control my clients and like make them do what I wanted them to do, right? Because I was a position of authority. He was a position of authority in our relationship. So yes, owning what is yours, reflecting, okay, I see this in them, where am I seeing that? And then eventually you have to know when that decision is of like, this is just an unhealthy relationship. And we're only bringing out the shadow in each other. At some point, you can't be in the underworld for too long. You're gonna get lost in there, or because it's a constant state of healing, or sorry, alchemizing of all of that. But it's just always, there's a lot of darkness. It's a lot. So it's listening to really stepping into you and listening to you when it feels right to move forward. And through experience, like with what you just did with this previous partner, it's like, no, I'm not okay with this because I've already experienced this. And we already dissected a little bit of what happened. So you can take what's yours, like, okay, I know I can do this differently. This is mine. All that other bullshit that he did, that's his thing to take care of. Always separating that. So that's the one thing, not getting stuck in there, claiming what's yours, like what you've already talked about. And then when you're in the sacred union, of course, you're going to see things within each other. So one of the things that Ron mirrored to me was ambition, right? I wanted him to be more ambitious than what I thought he would be. And I didn't project that onto him because at this level now I have the awareness, like I'm not going to project what my trauma and what I feel the man should have, but it was really because I wanted him to what's the word I'm looking here? I didn't want to have to bring in and chip in for like expenses and things like that, right? And it was a way for me to not take responsibility of my end. You get what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So once I shifted that, now is he becoming more, as I started just taking more leadership in my own life, he started taking more leadership in his life. So the work is always just going to be on you, and always returning to your center, returning to your oracle, your truth, and sitting down and asking those questions, writing it down, journaling, sitting with yourself, contemplating what is mine, what is theirs, this is my responsibility. Am I still available for this relationship? Okay, yeah, there's still a little bit that I want to see through. Okay, then you own that decision. Am I available for this relationship? No, it's not working any longer. It's just not. And then you make that decision, but you made it from your truth, not based on their stuff or what they're in the process of mirroring. Because shit, you can go down a dark rabbit hole with that forever. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
clear.
so this archetype is really bringing it back to you, bringing it back to you, bringing it back to you, bringing it back. What do I want? What do I want? What feels good? What feels true? Do I need to step up and be more fierce in my boundaries? Like, is that the way this is going to be expressed? Like, and take action. That's the part where we don't abandon ourselves with this, is like taking that action when those answers come, and knowing that you're gonna be okay, regardless of what happens. And that's what I feel allows me to stay sovereign with Ron, to like with what I truly desire. If things were to go, if we were to break up, like I know I would be okay. Like I know it's not going to happen, but there's like this detachment to the relationship, so that I allow him to make sovereign choices and I allow myself to make sovereign choices. And then we can talk about these things and take our time with talking about them and not have this pressure and to rush things, because I'm always aligning with my own oracle, with the priestess within me. Okay. Yeah. So I think that's what I want to top it up with here. And the last thing I have here is like our connection with our womb and just loving that part of us and not neglecting that part. So if you haven't created a relationship with your womb and your bleed, this is that invitation to start. Or just a reminder to come back and recenter with that area with ourselves. But I don't really feel called to really talk about that. What I really felt strongly, like this part of ourselves of not abandoning and always staying true with our oracle and what we stand for. Okay, so I'm gonna put in some questions for tonight for you to start, answering about like what we stand for and everything about the embodiment of this. And then tomorrow we'll have the embodiment practice.
Yeah. And so do men have also feminine energy inside of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So does that mean they have an oracle too? Do you know how, like, is that is that connected to how integrated their feminine energy is, of how strong that is, or do you have anything to say on that?
Yeah, I wouldn't call it an oracle part with them, but yes, they do have that connection to source. And that is more of their how connected they are with their heart center.
Yeah.
The more they are able to not be so guarded with themselves and the more they can show their own vulnerability is when they can open up and be receptive to that. And just, men have the gifts of, claircognizant, clairsentient, clairvoyance. I always keep missing one of them. Clairsentient, clairvoyance, claircognizant, clairaudient. I keep forgetting the clairaudient. They have that too. But yeah, I do believe that when the more they are connected to their heart, the easier it is for them to connect with their intuition. They just have a different relationship with source than we do. I don't quite understand it because I'm not a man, but I definitely know they have for them, it's a lot more of that presence, I believe, because I've had Ron, just from speaking of experience with Ron, because I don't really work with men, so I really don't have much to say on that. I can only speak with Ron. Like when I had him, I was really into the Course in Miracles. I'm not sure if you heard of that metaphysical text, but there was like lessons. And one of them is that I see the God and you say what you see. So like, I see the God in this mirror. I see the God in this calendar. I see the God in this, spray, whatever. But we were outside and he because he has very good presence. He's very much connected with his heart that he was able to see the God in all of that. And I was like, wow, you were able to do that. But for me, it's different. Like I don't connect with source like that. You know what I mean? Like he uses his consciousness to really penetrate with source. But I know he's really connected with his heart because he can feel like animals, like he can really sense their energy. I think is just one of his gifts. I have a different relationship with source. I can't, it's like they just have it differently than us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's all I have to say about that because I don't work with men, so I don't really know much, but that's just my experience. And he with Ron, it's definitely about him connecting more actually to his cock energy. And that's how I've made that connection. My ex was connected with his cock energy, but he wasn't as rooted in his heart. So I didn't experience with him the kind of guidance or the kind of connection with source that Ron has. So it's just, they're so contrasting energies, So that's my opinion on that.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Amazing.
All right. So I'll drop the embodiment practice tomorrow and then I'll see you Monday.
See you on Monday.
All right. Have a good night. Bye.